The Mets are coming home. They're coming home. Oh, we can't really sing that anymore because the guy who sings it's pretty much cooked. Ashley WENSKOSKI is with us on today's Mets Daily Show. I'm your host, Jake Brown, at Jake Brown Radio. Make sure you click that, smash that, whatever adjective you have for hitting that thumbs up. There it is. There's the emoji. Click that thumbs up below on the video. Subscribe to Mets Daily. Share the channel with your family, your friends, your cats, your goldfish. Let them know to join the show at Mets Daily Show on Twitter. I'm at Jake Brown Radio on all social media. The Mets are home for a 7-game homestand. Thank God. There were about 12 fans in Minnesota. People want to complain about Mets attendance sometimes. I mean, what was going on in Minnesota? Did they have was everyone at the National Mall of Minnesota, like that mall that's there that my mom went to a scrapbook festival once? Like, where was everyone? I know the weather was not that warm, but there were 12 people in the building on Wednesday.
Yeah, too cold in Minnesota for baseball in April. It just is.
But what's not cold this weekend, actually, 80 degrees Saturday at Citi Field. And the NBA gods cooked me by putting the Knicks at 6 p.m. So I got to do the Mets because the weather's good and I need to turn from Casper the Ghost to Jim Tan Laundry and go to the ballpark. But I also got to catch the Knicks. So I'm hoping for a quick game Saturday, but good weather, 7-game homestand. Good opponents in terms of rivals. Like, we hate the Cardinals. We hate the Phillies. You're from the suburbs of Philly. You know plenty of Philly fans. I live right outside Philly now. I know tons of Phillies fans. We hate them. We hate them all. We get along with them because we're surrounded by them, parts of our lives. But we hate them. And we hate the Cardinals for sure. So two hated teams coming to Queens after a trip that was underwhelming, after a series in Minnesota, Ashley, that we saw some bad things. So let's talk about it. She hosts Why Am I a Mets Fan podcast. Make sure you check out her show with Samantha Croston, who we also had on. We'll have them both on in a 3-box at some point in the coming months. So we're looking forward to that. But Ashley, I said I was frustrated with the loss. It's not that big of a deal. It's their C
Yeah.
team. But we have to admit we have seen some things from this team, despite them being in first place 11-7, that don't reek of a team that's going to win the division that we hope will change soon, especially from this offense.
Yeah, tough series in Minnesota. I was watching yesterday. It was sort of like the second game of that series on, what was it, Tuesday. You were like, all right, that one sucks, but the game just sort of got away from you. And then yesterday it was just like, that was a winnable game that just escaped their grasp. We've seen it from this offense last year. We're seeing it again this year. The whole wait till the seventh, eighth inning to hit shtick. And it's a good shtick when you come through, but it's not really a sustainable thing to kind of hang your hat on.
I was almost more mad yesterday at the umpiring. Like, Hunter Wendelstedt, poor guy gets drilled in the head after making one of the worst calls in the history of the sport.
Tyrone said, I think not.
Yeah, some people said karma is a bitch, but I'm like, damn, like, poor guy is like in the hospital now. Anyone who roots injury for someone is a terrible human being, but it was wild that 2 batters after he made that call that cost the Mets the 3rd run. Yes, Jose Budo has got to turn around and not argue the call. He's got to know a runner's coming home. You got to be aware of the situation, but also you can't be that mad at him because that call was right in front of the umpire and it was missed. And then the play at home, and I did want to TikTok live after the game and talked about it, was, Jesse Winker didn't argue it, but he also had a helmet covering his face. So it was a terrible send by the third base coach. He was going to be out on a perfect throw by a mile. But he was out. That's 2 runs. 2 runs. Luis Acuna not covering second on a couple of plays was a little weird. That game just was bizarre. I think that's one of those games you just throw away and you move on to tomorrow and you hit the plane and you get home to Queens today. But there have been some frustrating things. One of those frustrating things, and people are calling it a WFAN, Ashley, is Juan Soto. And to me, it's so ridiculous. My old employer, of course, putting out 2, and I talked about this the other day, 2 paywall stories in an amateur hour moment by a company that craves for clicks more than anyone else.
Yeah.
And they lay off the wrong people and keep the wrong ones, lay off the wrong ones. They put out the story about Soto, about Judge, which nothing he said was incorrect. Judge is the best hitter in the game, but there are literally people calling in, Ashley, about Juan Soto, worried. They're saying he's overpaid, he sucks. Meanwhile, he still has 3 homers. His on base is still good. He just hasn't hit a lot. What is your evaluations on everything Juan Soto and the Juan Soto discourse?
My evaluation on, first of all, what the Post did with those stories is, if I was Juan Soto, I never want to talk to Mike Puma and what was it, John Heyman again. The way that I guess, yeah, that is what he said, but the way that it was framed and sort of course, they're going to do that and make it, front page, back page news, but that's not exactly what he then later in the same interview, he was saying about how Alonso's been on fire, whatever. So that was just sort of a tough draw, but that's what the New York media will do. They'll show you up and they'll spit you out.
Yeah, one reporter going in doing the nitty gritty, the other replying about the reporter that did the nitty gritty, right, crapping on the player that he has quite a good relationship with an agent with. How about that?
Disaster. Anyways, in terms of his on the field production, I mean, I'm not worried. I think everybody it's one of those, like, just check your pulse moments, check your blood pressure. If you are getting worked up about Juan Soto on April 16th, I can't help you. This is a 15-year deal. Now, God knows if he'll be here for the entire 15 years, as we know. But I do not have the energy to live and die with every single Juan Soto at bat. The guy's still getting on base, right? He's still, like, every single game pretty much. He's on base. I know he's not what you pay him $765 million to do. You want to see him hit, and that will come. But I think to panic, like, what are we, 2.5 weeks into the season, it's just too much for me. Everybody's got to calm down.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's talking about Soto. How about other guys who aren't performing, like Brandon Nimmo? Yeah. I think he's trying to hit home runs now so much because he saw the power that he had last year. And what happened to our sweet prince that, yeah, we laugh at running to first base on a walk, but he was walking more. Like, Juan Soto's walking a lot, not getting a lot of pitches to hit. Baseball Savant, the numbers show you that he's like one of the last in the league that have pitches in the zone. He is getting pitches out of the zone. Brandon Nimmo, I think it's like 55% of his pitches are in the zone, and he's not hitting them. He's hitting 200. Yeah. So I'm of the belief that cold weather, this is a long season. If the Mets were 4-15, it's different. They're still 11-7 with all these issues everyone's talking about. So, we've been through doom and gloom before. I don't think this is the time to doom and gloom. I still think it's a great team, and I think people should be encouraged how good the pitching's been because that was the thing that everyone was worried about. So I think the hitting will come around, but it's guys who have been here like Brandon Nimmo who aren't hitting. It's Lindor who's not hitting. Again, we're not worried, but those are the guys we got to look at. Hey, you've been here a while. You got to turn this thing around. If Brandon Nimmo's going to hit cleanup or fifth, if Mark Vientos, who was a revelation last year, was going to hit fifth and be in the heart of that order, and he's hitting 160, and he looks lost at the plate, these are the guys that need to step up. It's not Juan Soto right now because Juan Soto's career shows you he's going to turn this around.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like you said, you look at that lineup, you look at the guys who aren't really being affected by the Soto effect as much, like a Nimmo, like a Vientos, and you're really looking for them to get going. I think Soto will come around. It's natural. I think the most encouraging thing, obviously, that you've taken out of the first few weeks is the benefits that Pete Alonso seems to be seeing from hitting behind Soto. I mean, you even saw in the game yesterday when they kind of had the 8th inning rally. Soto, I think, strikes out. Lindor gets on. Soto strikes out. And then Pete sort of starts the rally with the RBI double, driving him in. So Soto will come around. I'm not worried. I think it's way too soon. Like, if you just even think about the Mets last year in April, the 0-5 start, it's way too much too soon. Get back to me in, like, June.
You're watching Mets Daily. I'm Jake Brown. She's Ashley WENSKOSKI. She hosts Why Am I a Mets Fan podcast. Make sure you check out her show. You can get her on Twitter at Ashley, WENSK TV. She also is a sports anchor reporter at CNY Central up in Syracuse, where she, sometimes does cover the Syracuse Mets, the AAA team, and a team that could have some of those players coming here soon, Ashley. And I said yesterday on the show, in the words of Mrs. Doubtfire, help is on the way. Like, help is coming. Like, it's Francisco Alvarez, it's Jeff McNeil, and then it's center field. And Jeff McNeil's in that conversation as today he is starting in center field at Port St. Lucie. I think there's a lot of people on Twitter, and maybe I was one of them, who said, no, he's not a center fielder. He's not a center fielder. I will lose zero sleep if he's playing a meaningless game in single A in center field. And it's not, I shouldn't say meaningless, but in terms of like wins and losses, the Mets lose 24-0 in Port St. Lucie, they will still sleep at night. He could play there. I just don't see his body. I don't know what it is. I can't see the flying squirrel fly in center field. Which, what's your thoughts on that? And then Brandon Nimmo, he said, if they want me to move to center, I'll do it. I think our thought is, hey, if he's got plantar fasciitis issues, if you want to keep this guy healthy, is it the best idea to have him play the position where you got to cover the most ground and run it more than any other position? But if they're not worried about that, and health wise he's fine, Ashley, it does make it easier for the Mets if they say, okay, we'll move Nimmo center. We got Winker, McNeil, Marte to play left field. We got Acuna at second. We send Brett Beatty to the moon, and everything's good and grand.
Yeah, I think obviously the easy indicator there of them even testing McNeil in center field is that I think they've liked what they've seen from Luis Angel Acuna at second base, defensively at least. I know he had a couple miscues in yesterday's game, but I think he's a real asset to your team playing second base and playing sort of that middle infield role. Obviously, Lindor never takes a day off, but if he does, then Acuna slots into that sort of backup shortstop role as well. So,
and he's hitting 263, which right now is like third on the team. So he's hitting well too.
He's picked up the hitting. He stole a base yesterday. He's a threat on the base paths late to kind of, sub you in, get some speed out there. So Acuna, to me, I know this wasn't the debate that you were starting. You're talking about McNeil, but I'm going to get into it anyway. Acuna has solidified. I don't think Acuna is going anywhere. I've seen some people have sort of reached out to Sam and I because they know that we're here in Syracuse and said, hey, like Acuna played some center field in Syracuse last year. How'd that go? Like, what'd you see from that? And he was fine. I just think he is your biggest asset defensively at second base. So I think the Mets have seen that.
Well, touch on that. You said he's fine. What went wrong? What was it? His reach? Was it his height being an issue? Like, what did you see that was wrong with Acuna? Because I mentioned it. A lot of people on Twitter are saying, why not just move Acuna to center field?
I mean, from what I saw last year in Syracuse, like he's not going to hurt your team in center. I think, he wasn't maybe getting to every single ball, maybe like stuff like that. Like, I mean, he has this speed, but you mentioned the height. That's definitely a factor. I think he's just better at second. I think you don't see the caliber of plays that he makes at second base in center field. I mean, he looks like a guy that could, if he grows and develops, win a Gold Glove one day at second base. And I don't think you're going to say the same for his center field play. So I'm not surprised to see them test McNeil out there. Do I think that's an experiment that's going to stick? Not really. I don't see Jeff McNeil as your everyday center fielder. I just don't think that's realistic, sort of to what you were saying. I don't know, the way he moves, his body, he's like 32. I don't see it.
Yeah, he's like the father at the bar mitzvah dancing. Like he's like my dad. He's just moving left to right, but like has no rhythm whatsoever. Kind of like William Hung. Like we mentioned William Hung, I think in the past, like a weird first audition of American Idol. That's Jeff McNeil in center field to me. And actually in the corner outfield, he's done a good job in his career. Like there's a reason he was the flying squirrel because he would run and jump against the right field wall and make a catch. You're like, holy crap, like Jeff McNeil, Gold Glove right fielder, left fielder. So, obviously they have no need for a right fielder 162 games a year. Left field is intriguing. I mean, Marte and Winker are not hitting enough. They're both okay defensively, but Marte, you want to talk about keeping a guy healthy, you're worried about Marte more about that than Brandon Nimmo because Marte is, one fly ball away from a groin injury and then hitting, the hookah shot with getting a lap dance any day of the week. We never know with Starling Marte on Instagram. But, that is the problem with Marte in left. Winker's fine in left, but I think they like them at DH. But, yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, Acuna's so good at that one position. Why mess with it and put him out in center field when you have elite defense then at second and short? He's kind of been like Iglesias for you, at least defensively at second base. And Lindor's made 4 errors. Like, we talked about Lindor hitting. I think a lot of this, and, a lot of fans, you got to think about all areas. One, yes, he had the kid. I think there's a lot of things in his life going on, and he's doing a Dairy Queen partnership now. I don't know if you saw that. He's got a Tops partnership. So I get it. He's got his kids' college tuition set already with just these partnerships. But it seems with the partnerships, with having a new kid, with probably losing sleep every night, mentally he just doesn't seem all the way there. And maybe as time goes on, his kid's healthy, the weather gets warmer, Lindor gets better. But there's been a lot of like mental and off-field things that I'm thinking about. I don't know about you with this Mets team in general.
Yeah, I agree with you. Lindor definitely does not seem all the way there. I think I personally don't even react to the lack of Lindor hitting early in the season. That's just who he is. At some point, you just got to chalk it up a guy's career. That's just what he does. He'll hit in June. But the errors have surprised me, definitely. I think that's not something you're used to seeing from Francisco Lindor. I mean, last year he was money at shortstop pretty much all year long. So to see that, I think definitely speaks to, yeah, I mean, he just had a kid. His head's not all the way at the ballpark every single day. And can you blame him? I don't really know, but I definitely think it'll come around as the season goes on. And I think you have to think about Lindor's had some adjustments in that clubhouse too, with bringing in Juan Soto, right? They seem to be friends. Even when we were there for the home opener in the clubhouse, they're chatting it up in the corner, talking with Carlos Mendoza in Spanish. It seems like all's well over there, but it's still a new feeling when Lindor's been the guy in that room for so many years to really, I mean, alongside Alonso, but he speaks to the media and whatnot much more than Pete. So when Lindor's been the guy there for so long, now you kind of have Juan Soto. You sort of have a 1A, 1B, or whatever you want to call it. It is an adjustment.
And you mentioned Alonso, 1A, 1B, and 1C. You're talking about three kind of franchise player. Egos clash here. Pete's got a big ego. Lindor's got more of a quiet ego. I think Lindor leads kind of by example, where Pete's got an ego, and of course Juan Soto's got an ego. Some people have called him a diva in some ways. So when you talk about those three guys, it's three egos clashing. People got to realize baseball, there are cliques. There are people hang out, the Spanish guys hang out with the Spanish guys, white guys with the white guys. That's a thing. Like, people want to say, don't get race involved. You're around these guys for 8 months. Spanish wives are hanging out with the Spanish wives. They're speaking their native language to them. They're eating Spanish food. They're going to certain restaurants together. And the white guys hang. That's why you see McNeil with Haley Alonso. Like, you see that. That's a thing. And I'm not saying it's an issue. I'm just saying it is a thing that factored in. And when you think about all areas of a team and a club, you got to think about the other factors that go on when you talk about an 8 to 9 month grind and a guy just getting here, Juan Soto. So give it time. I think they'll be fine. But there are egos that play here behind the scenes. So that's something to think about. And, Pete's, we'll see about Pete's ego if he gets a contract extension. Do you do a contract extension in season? Mets, there's a lot of Mets fans saying, do it. Get it done right now. I think April's way too soon. But there's going to be a time where you're thinking, Ashley, July, August, are we going to negotiate with Scott Boras yet again, do it in season, give ourselves headaches, and get this extension done? Because if he hits like he is, the minimum I'm thinking is 5 years, 150 at this point.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly going to be interesting to see develop. We're talking about off-the-field stuff, having kids. Haley Alonso announced she was pregnant the other day, too, so Pete's having a kid as well.
A smart baseball decision, having the kid where it's going to come in like December, right? Or yeah. January. It'll be an off-season baby. Yeah. Well planned by the Alonsos.
Genius. Yeah, it'll be interesting, right? I almost see the Mets as, and Steve Cohen specifically, as reluctant to want to get into that just because of how everything went with Boras last time, and Cohen's going on the record at Citi Field before it got done saying the negotiations were worse than Soto and the whole 9 yards. To me, I think whatever went on there with those negotiations, like, Steve Cohen was not pleased. He was pleased that they eventually got it done, but that was not his favorite, negotiations and thing to discuss. So will their backs be forced against the wall, and David Stern specifically, in a July or an August, if Pete keeps up this pace? Of course they will. But I think it'll be interesting because that was just such a nightmare only a couple of months ago. And then you get like a 6-month break and you got to revisit it. Like, that's just kind of a nightmare for both parties.
Yeah, with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. off the board, the first base market is very, very slim. So we'll see if they go to a polar bear when times are slim. Do they go to the big fella? Because, do you want Paul Goldschmidt at 39, Carlos Santana at 40? Do you want Ty France? Do you want to pay Josh Naylor, who's going to ask for a similar amount that Pete's probably going to ask for, a little bit younger, but I don't know if that makes sense either. So that's something down the road to revisit. Let's finish up, 7-game homestand. Listen, McNeil any day now, Alvarez any day now. The backup for Jose Siri. I think it could be Jose and Jose Crimey. I think it could be Jose Azocar that ends up replacing him. Unless the Mets are serious about McNeil in the outfield and moving Nimmo over, then maybe they go that route instead. But what do you think? Is it Azocar? And then in terms of AAA, Brandon Sproat. Do we see, I don't think it's going to be him tomorrow because it looks like Griffin Canning is good to go tonight. He was sickness. He got pushed back. So I don't think the Mets are going to that 6th starter. Hageman obviously came up, did a brilliant job yesterday in his Major League Baseball debut. But first off, do you think it's going to be Azocar? And second off, do we see Sproat sometime soon or this summer?
Yeah, I think Azakar is probably the natural option for them to call up with that Jose Siri injury. His Siri injury much bigger than anybody sort of thought it was going to be, so that's unfortunate. Talked about Justin Hageman, great start yesterday. We didn't even mention that he was on the money. What was it, like 5 scoreless? That was great to see, just from a depth perspective. But yeah, the Brandon Sproat thing is going to be interesting as the summer sort of continues to wear on. I really think they're going to be reluctant. I mean, they haven't seen near enough to justify a call up, which almost to me makes me sort of wonder and speculate if they'd be more apt to call up like a Blade Tidwell over Sproat. Because to me, Sproat he had like one good start a couple weeks ago in AAA. He went like 4 1/3 scoreless. But if that's what you're hanging your hat on is 4 1/3 scoreless in AAA, and that's sort of your best AAA start to date, I think that's a problem to begin with. He struggled at the end of last season when they called him up. He sort of struggled to begin this year. I think you need to see a month or two more of solid evidence that Brandon Sproat is ready, and he hasn't compiled that yet. And I think your number one prospect, a guy you see in your rotation for years to come, it's sort of like, why rush that this early in the season? And when you do have somewhat of a depth of pitching options. So to me, that would be a reactional sort of emotional move that I don't really see David Stearns making at this point. And I think, of course, with any prospect like that, you want to push their major league debut down the line for arbitration and all that.
Yeah, that's interesting. We haven't heard, we've heard Tidwell's name, but we haven't heard Tidwell before Sproat. So that is interesting you bring that up if that'll happen. Also just came up for me about the Syracuse Mets. Are they allowing cats in the ballpark tonight? Thursday?
Oh,
Is that an actual thing? Are we freaking kidding me?
it's Purrs Day. That's what they call it. It's Thursday.
But they let cats in the ballpark? That's like
Well, I
my
think
worst
what happened
nightmare.
I've never been there to see it, and I'm actually all set. Will not be attending. But I think
Bring your Zyrtec with you. Bring your Claritin.
no, literally, they have like bark in the park for dogs, which I think the Mets do at Citi Field as well. And I think there was cat owners that were like, well, what about our cats? So they're always doing some shtick over there to get people in the door, especially in April when it's still it like snowed 2 days ago in Syracuse. So they're always trying to get folks.
PSA out there. Never bring your cat to Citi Field or you will be banned personally by Jake Brown from the ballpark. Never bring a cat to a baseball stadium.
It is odd. Like, is the cat? What are the logistics of that? Is the cat on a leash? Like, what's going on?
Apparently, they said they tweeted out it's true. Leashed and harnessed cats are allowed at tonight's game. No, I didn't come up with this. Yes, it's happening. See you there. And listen, Syracuse Mets love their social media, love their follow Kylie, who does their Twitter. It's a great team over there. Love the people there. We love Evan Stockton. We don't love cats at the ballpark. So I would love to come up there and visit one day, but if it's cat night, count me out. You should be giving out Zyrtec to the first 2,000 customers because the allergies are crazy.
Yeah, the best night up there, unironically, is Thursday. They do the $1 Thursday, $1 beers, dollar hot dogs.
Well, yeah, and they're advertising that. They're saying $1 Thursday, but like, can you make it $1 Thursday and not per dollar? How about $1 everything with no freaking cats in the building?
I don't want to see your cat.
I run into so many cat people and cat. You always talk to people and they got a cat. You're like, oh, well, this is over.
Right. Not looking for a cat lady.
Yeah, I've met too many cat. It's like love. Oh, I have 3 cats. See ya. It's out of here, Michael K. See ya. Oh, God. It's not Thursday at Citi Field, though. The start of a 7-game homestand. The Mets in Queens do not allow cats, so don't go to the ballpark this weekend with cats. It's Mets-Cardinals. Screw the freaking Cardinals. It'll likely be Griffin Canning versus Palante tonight. Tomorrow night, it'll be David Peterson on the hill versus Mikolas, and then 80 degrees. Saturday, Ashley, you might have to make a trip. Kodai Senga takes the hill. Brandon Nimmo hoodie on Friday night. It's the Mr. Met Empire State bobblehead on Saturday. And then on Sunday, it'll be an afternoon game, 1:40, Sonny Gray versus Clay Holmes. Gonna be a fun series. And Citi Field, it might not be a sellout because of Easter weekend, but I expect really, really good crowds. I'd expect 38,000 Saturday, maybe Easter Sunday, 40,000, a packed house this weekend. Looking forward to it. And, me and Ashley not worried about the Mets. So everyone calm down. There are things to be concerned about, but it's a long season. The weather's getting warmer. McNeil and Alvarez, I think, will make a big difference. Alvarez and Torrens now with the ability to split time. It makes, you don't have to pinch hit for the catcher late in the game. They've had to do that every game Sanger starts, and Sanger's been great. It's been a great story. but in the 7th inning, you're using a pinch hitter. Sometimes that's not Torrens. Like, you're wasting 2 guys off the bench. You won't have to do that when you got Alvarez or Torrens starting because they're both likely, we hope, going to hit. She's Ashley WENSKOSKI. You can follow her at Ashley Wens TV. She reports in Syracuse at CNY Central, sports anchor reporter there, YMI Mets Fan Pod with Samantha Croston. Ashley, smash that thumbs up too if you're watching this. If you enjoyed, let us know what you thought of Ashley's performance. Let us know what you thought of the show. Subscribe, share Mets Daily at Mets Daily Show at Jake Brown Radio. Ashley, thank you so much for coming on, and we'll do it again soon. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets. We'll talk to you on a happy Friday tomorrow on Mets Daily. Thanks for watching.